In this video, we're going to cover how to create the rook, or the castle chess piece. I previously explained how to make the pawn, as you can see here on the right-hand side, by creating a profile that is the left side of this particular piece, and then revolving it. We want to also ensure that the bottom of our piece is completely horizontal, so that when we do 3D print this, it will stand flat. We're going to repeat that exact same procedure here for the rook itself. But I also want you to know that anytime that you're going to create a new piece, you should start by creating a component. The component button is here, and when we click on this, we can name our component the rook. And we want to ensure that the parent is not the pawn, but instead the upper level object, which is your file name. So ensure that that part of it is selected as the parent. When we click active here, activate, you will see that the background becomes a bit more transparent. If you would like to see that, you can actually change that in your preferences. If you go up to the upper right-hand corner, click on your account, go to preferences, underneath general, and then the assemblies here underneath design, you can say active component visibility. And if you uncheck that and say apply, now that active component will be still activated, but all the other items will not be transparent. That's how you can get away with that. I've already gone ahead and created a new sketch on that same plane as the pawn. When we create this sketch, there's a couple of things I want you to ensure that you look at. One is we need to make sure the bottom, again, is flat. Now I can do that and also make sure that my center axis line is in this middle of my rook by creating a midpoint constraint. I'm going to go ahead and draw a line on the bottom that is horizontal that goes all the way across my rook. And then the center point line here, I'm going to use the midpoint constraint to make sure that that midpoint matches with that line. That ensures that the entire piece will go all the way across. Again, I use the fit spline curve to create most of these curves, using a straight line when necessary. I also want to ensure that the left side of my rook is also completely vertical and the top is completely horizontal. You'll also notice I did not cut out the guardians here, the little cutouts on the top of the rook, because we're going to do that in a different way. So go ahead and finish that sketch and then revolve it, and you should have a nice clean looking rook. And then we're going to start with the top. So the next thing we want to do is actually create a sketch on top of our rook. Previously, we've only been using sketches on existing XY or XYZ planes. And this time, we're going to create a new sketch. And we're going to select the top of the rook as our sketch plane. This means our sketch will start on top of an object instead of the other planes that it was starting on. Now from here, we're going to create a design that's going to cut out the middle of our rook and also cut out the edges. So I'm going to go ahead and use a center rectangle and then use some inference. I can inference that this is going to be the middle of my piece here. I go into the top, trying to check to see if there is a middle point, which is about right there. Select and drag this out. And I'm going to create one that is going to be the center cutout, about this area or so. Now I'm going to create the cutouts. I can do this in a few different ways. I'm going to try to do the more simple one for us, and do that by creating a square block and about the top area like so. Again, it would be nice if that was centered up, so I can actually create a line and then choose a construction line type. This means a line that is not part of our drawings, but is only used for reference. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that it is fully straight up and down. And now I'm going to use that midpoint constraint again on the top of this area. So midpoint from that straight up and down line to my other geometry to make sure that that lines up in the very middle. Just like that. Perfect. Now our next step is to spin that thing around in a circular pattern to create all 8 edges. The way that we can do this is by going to Create, and then Circular Pattern. And now I can select this geometry, just the squares, and then choose a center point, which is the middle of my drawing, and I can show different quantities. You can see that it has already defaulted to 3, and it has 3 other versions, or 3 total copies of this. And I can go ahead and increase that. Up to 8 is a pretty good number. The distribution is full. You can do this in partial or symmetric distributions as well. But for our case, this is going to work perfect. And then we're going to say OK. That creates a geometry. Let's look at this without the body. A geometry that looks about like this. That will work excellent for us. Let's go ahead and finish that sketch. Bring back the body. And now I'm going to extrude those objects down. I can select all of these, which can be a lot of work. If we wanted, we could go into our drawing and trim those out to have less to select. That is certainly an option. Or we can spend our time just clicking all of these. And now operation is going to be a cut. And we're going to move this down until we have cut through most of the top of this turret. And that's going to look pretty good there. And then we're going to say OK. And now if we hide our canvas, we can see our fully formed and fully beautiful looking rook. That's how it works.